He left me for another woman, shattering my heart and everything I thought I knew about loyalty and love. I was broken, drowning in pain, questioning my worth, my entire life. But what he didn't expect was that my heartbreak would be the fuel I needed to rise. I didn't just survive. I rebuilt myself, piece by piece until I was unrecognizable. Stronger, fiercer, happier. When he came crawling back, begging for forgiveness, I realized I was no longer the woman who had begged for him to stay. I had become the woman who learned the hardest truth of all. The love I needed most was the love I had to give to myself. My name is Clara, and if you'd told me a year ago that I would be here, telling you my story, I wouldn't have believed you. I thought I had it all: an amazing husband, a comfortable life, a beautiful house we built together. I thought we were in this for the long haul. But as they say, life has a way of surprising you when you least expect it. I had always considered myself to be a practical person, calm, methodical, and someone who believed in the power of hard work to overcome anything. My marriage was no different. For years, I had put my heart and soul into building a life with my husband, Adam. We had met in college, fell in love quickly, and, for the most part, had a smooth, happy journey. We didn't have the kind of love that set the world on fire, but it was steady. It worked. At least that's what I thought. Everything changed on a cold Tuesday morning. I remember it so clearly because it was the moment that shattered everything I thought I knew about my marriage, my life, and even myself. Adam came home from work early that day. He seemed off, distant. I remember asking him if everything was okay. I should have known something was wrong. There was a heaviness in the air, something unspoken, but I never imagined the words that would come out of his mouth next. "Clara, I've met someone else," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm leaving you." It felt like the room spun around me. I stood there, frozen, unable to comprehend what I was hearing. Adam was the man I had shared my life with for nearly 10 years. We had built this life together, our home, our future, and now he was telling me that he had fallen in love with someone else? It didn't make sense. "I'm sorry," he continued, his face unreadable. "I never meant for it to happen, but I've fallen for her. I need to go." I remember the sensation of being punched in the gut. I felt lightheaded, numb. In that moment, everything I thought I knew about my marriage felt like a lie. How could this happen? How could he just walk away like it was nothing? I tried to make sense of it all. "What do you mean you're leaving me?" I asked, my voice shaking. "How can you just throw everything away like this?" He didn't answer at first. He looked at me, but there was no warmth in his eyes. "I've been thinking about it for a while," he said. "I'm sorry, Clara. This isn't working anymore." The words felt like a punch that I couldn't escape. "Who is she?" I demanded, needing to know. "Who is the woman you're leaving me for?" He hesitated, then finally spoke her name. Julia. She was a coworker, someone he had been spending more and more time with over the past few months. It wasn't an affair in the traditional sense, he said. It was an emotional connection that grew over time. But to me, it didn't matter what he called it. It was betrayal, pure and simple. I spent the next few hours in a daze. I didn't cry, not at first. I couldn't even process what had happened. My husband was leaving me for another woman. Everything I had built with him, every memory, every moment, suddenly felt worthless. I had no idea where to turn, who to talk to. I felt completely alone. That evening, Adam packed his bags. He didn't even try to explain further. The look in his eyes was not the man I had married. It was as if the person I had known was gone, replaced by someone I couldn't even recognize. As he walked out the door, I watched him go, my heart shattering into pieces. I couldn't comprehend how my whole life had just unraveled. This wasn't supposed to happen. This wasn't the plan. And yet, it was happening. Adam was leaving, and I was standing there, broken, In the days that followed, I felt lost. I couldn't understand why. I kept asking myself, what did I do wrong? Wasn't I enough for him? But no matter how much I tried to rationalize, the truth was that Adam had made his choice, and there was nothing I could do to change it. But one thing I knew for sure was this: I wasn't going to let this defeat me. It felt like my world had come crashing down, but deep down, I felt the spark of something that told me I could rise again. I didn't know how, and I didn't know when, but I knew that I would rebuild. I didn't have the answers right then. All I had was a quiet, burning determination to find a way forward, to prove not only to Adam, but to myself, that I was stronger than this. I had no idea where the road would take me, but I wasn't going to let this be the end of my story. And soon, I would learn that this was only the beginning. In the days that followed Adam's departure, I did what I had to do to keep myself afloat. I buried myself in work, and I tried to keep the world at bay. The emptiness of our house, once full of memories and shared routines, was unbearable. I would find myself pacing through rooms we had decorated together, sitting at the kitchen table where we had planned our future, or walking through the garden where we had spent hours planting flowers. It all felt like a cruel reminder of everything that was now gone. I cried, of course. There were moments when the grief would hit me like a wave, crashing over me with such force that I thought I couldn't breathe. But as much as the sadness consumed me, there was another emotion rising to the surface: anger. Deep, seething anger. How could he do this to me? How could he walk away without any regard for the life we had built? I kept asking myself these questions over and over again, but there were no answers. Adam had chosen someone else, and no amount of crying or asking why would bring him back. But somewhere in the fog of heartbreak, I started to feel something else. A flicker of clarity. I wasn't just angry at Adam, I was angry at myself. For so long, I had defined myself by my role as his wife, as part of us. I had poured everything into our relationship, thinking it would last forever. But I had lost sight of who I was outside of that. I had allowed myself to fade into the background, believing that as long as we were together, everything else would fall into place. I had become so focused on being his wife that I had neglected to be me, the woman I had been before him, before the marriage, before the life we built together. That realization hit me like a slap in the face. I had given up so much of myself, and in return, I got a man who decided I wasn't enough for him anymore. It was time for me to stop feeling sorry for myself. It was time for me to take back control of my life, to find out who I was without him. And so, I started small. At first, I didn't make any grand plans or announcements to myself. I simply started doing the things I had put on the back burner for so long. I picked up my old hobby of painting. I went on long walks by myself, reconnected with old friends, and rediscovered parts of me that had been buried for years. It wasn't easy. It wasn't all smooth sailing. There were days when I wanted to crawl back into bed and hide from the world. But little by little, I began to feel stronger. I started working out regularly, something I had always enjoyed but never had the time for. I hired a personal trainer to help me regain some of the strength I had lost. Not just physically, but emotionally as well. The workouts weren't just about getting fit. They were about reclaiming my power. Every time I pushed myself to lift more weight or run further, I felt the anger and frustration I'd been carrying with me leave my body, if only for a moment. I also made a conscious decision to stop dwelling on Adam. As much as it hurt, I couldn't keep torturing myself with what had gone wrong or why he had left. He had made his choice, and I had to respect that, even if I didn't understand it. I deleted his number from my phone, stopped checking his social media, and blocked his emails. I knew that if I kept allowing him access to my life, I would never be able to move forward. One day, about a month after he left, I realized that I hadn't cried about him in days. The pain was still there, lurking, but it no longer consumed me. And that was the moment I knew something had shifted. I was no longer defined by my past. I was becoming someone new, stronger, more independent. The woman I had lost sight of was starting to reemerge, piece by piece. But as I rebuilt myself, something unexpected happened. I began to feel something else, something I hadn't anticipated. I started to feel happy. I could go an entire day without thinking about Adam. I started enjoying my own company, spending time in ways I never would have before. Dining alone, going to movies by myself, and finding joy in the things I used to do when I was single. It wasn't that I had forgotten about the heartbreak or what Adam had done. It was that I was learning to live again without needing him to be a part of it. I was no longer the wife of Adam. I was Clara, a woman with her own passions, her own dreams, and her own life. And then, just when I thought I had finally moved on, I got the message that would change everything. It was from Adam. The text was simple, almost casual. "Can we talk? I've been thinking a lot about everything, and I want to explain. I'm sorry. I need to see your..." For a moment, I was frozen, staring at the screen. Part of me wanted to tell him to leave me alone, to ignore him, to continue moving forward without him. But another part of me, the part that still carried some unresolved feelings, wanted to hear him out. I didn't know what he could possibly say that would make up for what he had done, but I was curious. Curious and maybe a little foolish. I hesitated for a moment, then texted back, "What do you want to say?" I wasn't sure what would come next, but whatever it was, I knew that I had changed. I had built a life for myself that I was proud of. I had rediscovered the woman I had almost forgotten. And if Adam wanted back in, he would have to prove that he was worthy of me, not the other way around. I was no longer the woman who would beg for him to stay. This time, if he wanted me back, he would have to earn it. The days after I received Adam's message were filled with a whirlwind of emotions. Part of me was tempted to give him the benefit of the doubt, to let him explain himself, to see if maybe there was some way we could repair the damage. But the other part, the part that had been working so hard to rebuild herself, was adamant that I wasn't going to fall for the same manipulation again. It was hard to explain to anyone, let alone to myself, what was driving me. Why did I even want to meet with him? Was it to hear him grovel, to see if he would apologize in the way I thought I deserved? Or was it because, deep down, I was still holding on to some thread of hope that we could somehow fix this? But I wasn't the same person anymore. I had changed. I wasn't going to let him waltz back into my life just because he regretted his decision. If he truly wanted me back, he had to show me he had grown. He had to prove he was capable of seeing me for the person I had become, not the person he had left behind. Finally, after a few agonizing days of back and forth, I agreed to meet him. I didn't want to. I was scared to. But I couldn't just keep wondering what he had to say. I had to know once and for all if he had really changed. We agreed to meet at a small cafe downtown. I arrived early, sitting at a corner table, sipping a coffee, trying to calm my racing heart. My hands were trembling as I stirred the spoon around in my cup, but I took a deep breath. This wasn't about him anymore. This was about me. This meeting wasn't about reconciliation. It was about closure. If he truly wanted back in my life, he would have to do the work to prove he was worthy of me. When Adam walked into the cafe, I couldn't help but feel a wave of conflicting emotions. There he was, the man I had loved for so many years, standing there looking different. Not in a physical sense. He still had that same rugged charm, the familiar, soft smile I had once fallen for. But there was something about him that seemed off. Maybe it was the way he walked toward me, hesitantly, as if unsure of how to approach me. Or maybe it was the look in his eyes, the uncertainty that I hadn't seen in him before. "Clara," he said, his voice soft but laced with an edge of nervousness. "Thank you for agreeing to meet me." I nodded, trying not to show how much his presence affected me. "I didn't agree to meet you for closure. I agreed because I want to hear what you have to say. I want to hear what you think you've learned." Adam sat down across from me, looking uncomfortable, like he wasn't sure what to say next. I could see the guilt in his eyes, the weight of his actions sitting heavily on his shoulders. But I wasn't going to make it easy for him. I wasn't going to offer him a space to apologize and expect that to be enough. After a long pause, he spoke again. Clara, I know I've hurt you. I've made the biggest mistake of my life. And I'm sorry. I never should have left you for her. I was selfish and I didn't appreciate what we had until it was too late. His words stung, but I didn't let them show. Instead, I leaned back in my chair and crossed my arms, waiting for him to continue. He looked down, his eyes full of regret. I thought I wanted something different, that I could find happiness somewhere else. But I was wrong. Julia, she was never the answer. She was a distraction, a temporary fix. What I really wanted, what I've always wanted, was you. And I know I don't deserve it, but I'm asking for a second chance. The sincerity in his voice was hard to ignore. Part of me wanted to believe him. I wanted to take him back, to pick up where we left off and pretend like everything was going to be okay. But the other part of me, the stronger, more independent version of myself, knew that I couldn't just forgive him because it was convenient. I couldn't just sweep everything under the rug and pretend that the last few months hadn't happened. Adam, I said, my voice steady but firm. I've spent the last several months rebuilding my life. I've focused on myself, on rediscovering who I am without you. And I've learned a lot about myself in the process. I've realized that I don't need you to complete me. I'm already whole. His expression faltered, but I pressed on. You left me when I was at my lowest, and I had to claw my way back up. You made a choice to walk away, and I respect that. But now I have to ask you something. Why should I believe that you won't do it again? Why should I believe that you've changed? Adam opened his mouth to speak, but I cut him off. Because I've changed, Adam. I've rebuilt my life, and I've become someone I'm proud of. I don't need you to make me feel whole. If you're here because you're lonely or regret your decision, that's not enough. I need to know you've done the work. That you're not just coming back because things didn't work out with her. He sat there, looking at me, and for the first time, I could see that he understood. There was no defensiveness, no excuses, just raw honesty. I know I don't deserve you, Clara. I understand that now. I've been trying to figure out what went wrong, and I've realized that the problem wasn't with you. It was with me. I took you for granted, and I never fully appreciated what we had. I was quiet for a moment, letting his words sink in. Part of me wanted to reach across the table, to take his hand, and tell him everything would be okay. But I knew I couldn't do that. Not yet. Not until I knew he was truly ready to be the man I needed him to be. I've worked hard to build the life I have now, I said softly. And I'm not willing to risk it just for the sake of trying to fix something that might not be broken. So, Adam, if you want to prove that you've changed, show me. Show me that you're ready to be the partner I need. Not just in words, but in actions. He nodded, his face filled with determination. I will. I will do whatever it takes. As we parted ways that day, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. Adam had asked for a second chance, but I wasn't ready to offer it just yet. He would have to show me that he was truly different. And for the first time in a long time, I knew that I was no longer dependent on his approval. I didn't need him to complete my life. I had already done that for myself. The real journey was only beginning, but I had already taken the first step. I was no longer the woman who would sit in the shadows, waiting for someone else to decide my worth. I had built a life that made me proud, and whatever happened next, I knew I could handle it. But Adam? He had a lot of proving to do. After meeting with Adam, I didn't hear from him right away. And that was okay. I didn't want him to rush in with more apologies or promises he couldn't keep. I needed him to show me real change. Not just words, not just fleeting moments of guilt. It had to be tangible. The man I married was a good man at his core, but somewhere along the way he'd lost his way. And it wasn't up to me to fix him. It was up to him to prove that he had the capacity to be the person I needed. I went about my life, keeping my distance, focusing on myself and continuing to build on the foundation I had laid. There was a certain peace that came with knowing that I was no longer waiting for Adam. I had spent so many years waiting for things to fall into place with him, hoping that the next milestone, the next gesture, the next promise would be the one that made everything right again. But now, I wasn't waiting for him to decide my happiness. I was creating it on my own. I had never realized how much of my identity had been wrapped up in him until he left. For the first time, I wasn't someone's wife, someone's partner, or someone's shadow. I was just Clara, a woman who could stand on her own 2 feet. And it felt damn good. Over the next few weeks, I poured myself into my work. I took on new projects, met with potential clients, and even started planning for a solo trip I had always dreamed of taking. The trip was to Paris, a city I'd always wanted to visit, but one I'd pushed aside in favor of other things. The old me, the one that was always willing to compromise, never would have gone without Adam by my side. But now it was time to live for me. It felt liberating. Then, about 3 weeks after our meeting, Adam called. This time I wasn't caught off guard. His voice was different. Calm. Steady. It wasn't desperate or full of excuses. It was clear that he had been thinking a lot about everything. "I've been working on myself, Clara," he said. "I've realized so much in the past month, and I know that I made a terrible mistake. I've done things I can't undo, but I want to show you I've changed. I don't expect you to take me back right away, but I want the chance to prove that I can be the man you need. I'm not asking for your forgiveness yet. I just want to start showing you that I've learned FR." I could hear the sincerity in his voice, but I was still cautious. Words were easy. Actions were what mattered. "Adam, I'm not going to forgive you just because you're sorry. You can't undo what you've done, and I don't expect you to. But if you're serious about this, about being the partner I deserve, you need to show me. I'm not just going to fall back into the same patterns. I've changed too." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "I understand. I'm ready to do whatever it takes." And so began the slow and steady process of Adam trying to show me that he had changed. He didn't bombard me with flowers or grand gestures like I thought he would. Instead, he started small, checking in with me every day, not with apologies, but with genuine interest in my day, my thoughts, and my life. He wanted to know what had changed in my world since he left. And he listened. Really listened. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like an afterthought. It wasn't about his needs or his guilt. It was about me. He started showing up in ways that were meaningful, helping me with a home project I'd been struggling with, cooking me dinner, something he'd never done before, and offering support for the business ideas I was exploring. He was patient, never rushing or forcing me to make decisions. He was building trust again, not through words, but through consistent, thoughtful actions. But I wasn't naive. I didn't just let him back in immediately. I needed to see if this was real, if this was sustainable. I continued my own journey, going to therapy, focusing on my business, and taking care of my well-being. I wasn't about to throw away all the hard work I'd put into becoming independent just because he was making an effort. I wasn't going to let him off the hook for his past mistakes. Weeks turned into months, and slowly the walls I had built around my heart began to soften. But the real test came when Adam suggested something that made my heart race. He wanted to take a trip together, to Paris, the place I had always dreamed of visiting, the place I had planned to go alone. I hadn't told him about my plans to go solo, but somehow he knew. I was hesitant. I wanted to go to Paris, sure. But could I go with him? Could I trust him again? Did I even want to? I had spent so long defining my life without him, and now he wanted to walk back into it, as though nothing had changed. "Clara," he said one evening, sitting across from me at the kitchen table. "I know this is a big ask, but I've learned that life is short. I can't keep running from my mistakes, and I can't keep waiting for the right moment. I want to show you that I'm serious. I want to experience life with you again. And if you'll give me that chance, I want to go to Paris. Together." I took a deep breath. It wasn't a decision I could make lightly. But in that moment, I realized something. I had rebuilt my life, and no matter what happened with Adam, I wasn't going to lose that. If I went to Paris with him, it wouldn't be to fix our marriage. It would be because I wanted to, because I was ready to take the next step, not because I was clinging to something from the past. I smiled softly, the first genuine smile I'd given him in a long time. Okay, let's go. But understand this, Adam. This is my choice. I'm not doing this because I feel sorry for you, and I'm not doing it because I think this will magically fix everything. I'm doing it because I'm ready to see what comes next. But I'm still in charge of my life. And I won't forget that. Adam looked at me with a mix of relief and admiration, and for the first time in a long time, I could see the man I had fallen in love with. The man who was willing to fight. Not just for me, but for the life we could still have together. But this time, it would be on my terms. And that was the real power of change. I had built a life without him. But now, if we were to move forward, it would be because we both wanted it. Not because I needed it. Paris was everything I had imagined it would be and more. The city was full of charm, history, and romance. It felt like stepping into a dream I had always planned to experience on my own. But somehow, in a strange twist of fate, I was there with Adam. It felt surreal. I had spent months learning to live without him, discovering my own strength. And now I was walking the streets of Paris, once again side by side with the man who had hurt me the most. The first few days were awkward, to be honest. There were moments where the silence between us felt heavier than the Eiffel Tower itself, and there were times when I wondered if I had made a mistake. We would sit across from each other at cafes, sipping coffee in near silence, each of us lost in our own thoughts. Adam would occasionally glance at me as if trying to read my mind, but I wasn't about to make it easy for him. I wasn't the same woman who had once hung on his every word, hoping for the validation and love he failed to give me. Still, I couldn't ignore the fact that there was something different in him now. He seemed more patient, more attuned to my needs, and not in a desperate way, but in a way that showed genuine care. He didn't try to fill every silence with words. Instead, he seemed content to just be present, which was a new experience for me. On the fourth day, we spent the morning wandering through the streets of Montmartre, an area I had always wanted to visit. The cobbled streets were lined with cafes and artist studios, and the air felt lighter here, almost like the weight of the world didn't exist. I remember walking beside Adam, the sound of our footsteps echoing in the quiet alley, the gentle hum of Paris in the background. It was then that I realized something important. I had been so focused on what Adam had done to me, on the betrayal, the hurt, the anger, that I had forgotten what it was like to simply be with him. We had been partners once, before everything fell apart. We had laughed together, shared dreams, traveled, and built a life we were proud of. And as I walked beside him in that moment, I started to wonder if it was possible to find that again. As we reached the top of the hill, we stood in front of the Sacré-Cœur, looking out over the city. It was breathtaking. The skyline stretched endlessly, the city bathed in the warm glow of the afternoon sun. Adam looked at me, his eyes soft, and for the first time in this entire trip, I saw vulnerability in his gaze. "I know I don't deserve this moment," he said quietly, his voice full of regret. "But I want to thank you for giving me the chance to be here with you, to show you that I can be the man you deserve. I've realized that it's not just about saying the right things. It's about proving it every day with my actions. I'm willing to do that, Clara, but I can't ask for your forgiveness if I haven't earned it." His words, simple as they were, hit me harder than anything he had said before. There was no excuse-making, no pleading for a second chance. There was just the raw honesty of a man who finally understood the weight of what he had done. And in that moment, I felt something shift inside me. I wasn't sure if I was ready to fully open my heart to him again, but I knew one thing for certain. I had seen a different side of Adam. One that wasn't about guilt or regret, but about genuine self-awareness. He wasn't asking for me to forget the past. He was acknowledging it, and that meant everything to me. We spent the rest of the afternoon at the top of the hill, talking, really talking, for the first time in months. We shared our thoughts on the future, on what had gone wrong, and what had changed in us both. There was no rush, no expectation, just two people reconnecting, figuring out where they stood in the aftermath of everything that had happened. The trip wasn't some magical fix for our marriage. It didn't wipe away all the hurt, nor did it erase the pain he had caused. But it was a turning point. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was dragging a past burden with me. I didn't feel like I had to carry the weight of our history alone. Adam was showing me, through his actions and his words, that he was willing to do the work. And for the first time in a long while, I started to believe that maybe, just maybe, he could be the man I needed him to be. The evening we arrived back at the hotel, Adam surprised me by pulling out a small, delicate box from his jacket pocket. I raised an eyebrow as he handed it to me, feeling a mixture of curiosity and hesitation. I had no idea what he was about to do. But when I opened the box, my breath caught in my throat. It was a necklace, simple yet elegant. A single pearl on a delicate gold chain. "It's not an apology, Clara," he said softly, watching me closely. "It's a symbol of what I've learned, that I have to earn your trust, your love, one step at a time. If you'll have me, I want to take those steps with you." I didn't know what to say at first. The gesture was unexpected, and part of me wanted to resist, to say that this wasn't enough, that it didn't undo the damage he'd done. But another part of me, the part that was slowly healing, the part that wanted to believe in second chances, felt a glimmer of hope. "Thank you," I said softly, my voice barely a whisper. I didn't know where we would go from here or how we would navigate the road ahead. But in that moment, I knew that the possibility of rebuilding was real. We both had work to do, but we were doing it together. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't afraid of what the future might hold, because this time, I knew I could handle whatever came my way. And as we sat together in that Parisian hotel room, looking out over the city, I realized that this was just the beginning of a new chapter. Whether it would be with Adam or without him, I had built a life that I was proud of. I had learned to trust myself, to put myself first, and to never again settle for less than I deserved. Now, the only question was whether Adam was ready to prove he could be part of that life, or if I would continue on without him. The next steps were mine to choose. It was a few weeks after Paris, and life had returned to a semblance of normalcy. Adam and I had settled into a new routine, one that was based on respect, understanding, and the slow rebuilding of trust. I wasn't sure if we would ever return to what we once were, but I wasn't focused on the past anymore. I was focused on the present and the future. Adam had been doing everything right. He had shown up for me in ways that mattered. He had become someone who listened, who put in the effort, and who wasn't afraid to admit his mistakes. But still, something in me hesitated. I wasn't sure if I could truly forgive him, if I could ever forget the betrayal. The scars were still there, faint but visible. One evening, I was sitting on the porch of the house we had once shared, a glass of wine in hand, reflecting on everything. I had come so far since Adam left me. I had built a life without him, learned to stand on my own 2 feet, and found peace in being Clara, not just someone's wife. I realized then that I had already created a life I was proud of. I didn't need Adam to complete me anymore. But I also realized that forgiveness wasn't about forgetting. It wasn't about pretending the pain didn't exist. It was about letting go of the resentment and allowing myself the freedom to move forward, whether that meant with Adam or without him. Adam came outside and sat beside me, his presence no longer one that I felt I had to accommodate, but one I could choose. He didn't say anything at first, just sat quietly beside me as if he knew that sometimes silence was what we both needed. After a while, he spoke. "I'm not perfect, Clara. I've hurt you, and I can never change that. But I've spent every day since we've been apart trying to be the person you deserve. I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I don't even expect you to take me back. But I need you to know that I am here, and I will be here, for as long as you'll have me. I looked at him then, really looked at him. I had spent so many months wrestling with the idea of forgiveness, with whether or not I should give him another chance. But in that moment, I realized something crucial. Forgiveness wasn't about Adam. It was about me. It was about choosing to free myself from the weight of the past and allowing myself the possibility of moving forward, whether with him or on my own. I've learned a lot about myself these past few months, Adam, I said quietly. And I've learned that I can live a full, beautiful life no matter what happens with us. But what I've also learned is that I'm not the same person who once begged for your love. I'm someone who deserves respect, trust, and honesty. If we move forward, it's because we both choose it and because we both show up as the best versions of ourselves. Adam nodded, his eyes filled with understanding. I get it, and I'll keep showing up. If you choose me, I'll be the partner you deserve, but I'll understand if you don't. I sat back, feeling a sense of calm wash over me. The decision was no longer about Adam. It was about me, about the life I had built, and about whether or not I wanted him to be a part of it. I realized that no matter what decision I made, I was whole. I was complete. I'm not sure what the future holds for us, Adam, I said, my voice steady. But I'm willing to try. On my terms. If you're ready to meet me there, then we'll see where it goes. The silence that followed was different from before. It wasn't awkward or filled with uncertainty. It was comfortable, peaceful, and full of possibility. The journey we had both been on had taught me that life wasn't about finding someone to complete you. It was about building a life that you're proud of, with or without anyone. And that was the most important lesson I had learned. As I looked out at the stars above us, I realized that whether we walked forward together or apart, I was okay. I had rebuilt myself, and I was ready for whatever came next. And that was the real victory. The strength to choose my happiness, regardless of what anyone else did.